Welcome to this podcast episode in which we will be looking at the topic of meaningful business. My name is Dr. Alex Altersky from the School of Business and Society at the University of York. A warm welcome to my guest, Andy Simpson from Brightsparks Agency based in York. Welcome, Andy. Please can you tell me a little bit about Brightsparks as a business and your background and what you do and what motivated you to pursue this line of business? Can you also tell me what meaningful business means to you and Brightsparks, and also how you have put meaningful business practices in action?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Alex. Really excited about it. Brightsparks is a culmination of basically my career and working background and kind of the bits that have inspired me in different roles and in different organisations that I've worked with, causes and challenges that I want to work to support and address in the world, and kind of the culmination of those things that perhaps in other roles that I've been in when I've been employed, I haven't necessarily had the power, capability, autonomy to kind of do anything about. Brightsparks is my vehicle for doing all of that, basically. So if I give you a little bit of a potted history about my background. So I suppose out of university, I went to work in youth services, developing youth kind of diversionary services, working particularly with young people that were on the cusp of the criminal justice sector, as well as like not in education, employment, training. And it was back in what I describe as the good old days of loads of cash being around from either central government or European money and all that kind of stuff. So we used to develop these diversionary programs where these young people were getting experiences and being kind of put through programs where they can learn skills that they're going to need for soft skills and behavioural skills and education skills in non-typical learning environments. We developed those really successfully. And I suppose I did quite a lot of the work with young people, but what I learned really quickly is that I'm not the guy that can inspire a young person to do something different. What turned out I was the guy for is working out how to design these services, how to put the various different components together of what should be involved with them to change behaviour and make behaviour work differently, and how to bring money in order to develop sort of business models and that type of thing. And that's kind of what motivates me. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle. It's like a problem-solving puzzle, and that's kind of my juice, if you like. So from there, I went on into being what's called a commissioner in the public sector, which is a great job in where the public sector just gives you loads of cash and goes, we want to solve these problems, work out the service models, and then buy the providers and then help them to develop the systems and processes that they need to solve those either social problems or cultural problems or educational problems. And what that did is I worked in lots of different local authorities, worked for central government as well, and basically gave me like a bit of a checkbook to kind of design these services. So I've designed everything from drug and alcohol services to building of new schools to fostering services to you name it, just about everything in the public sector I've had to go at kind of designing and having to go putting those services together. And I think the great bit about that was the innovation of kind of designing services, but the downside is you're within the constraints of the public sector. Everything's so slow, it takes so long to see a benefit and that type of thing. And also when the world stopped becoming about having this great big checkbook to do things with and start being about cutting services, I then went to work for a very large disability charity called Family Fund. Now, Family Fund are an amazing charity, and they work with over 100,000 families a year that are raising children with disabilities and additional needs. And basically, what my role was there is to take large amounts of government funding and work with very large corporate organizations like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Argos, Thomas Cook, all these big high street firms, and work out how to get grants and services that families raising disabled children need in order to help them raise their children. And I think that was a massive eye-opener about how those large corporate organizations leverage things like technology, leverage business systems and solutions, leverage strategy, and how they develop commercial models as well. It was a massive eye-opener about how they use those types of kind of systems and processes. And what I was really passionate about then is going, okay, how can I take some of that stuff and apply it to some of those social problems that I'd experienced when I was commissioning, and going, how can we do things better, and how can the public sector in particular leverage these types of systems that very often they'd never heard of or never come across, completely unaware of. And that was kind of the genesis of where Brightsparks came from. We wanted to develop ways of supporting the public sector in the challenges and causes that they are supporting, and not just the public sector, I suppose, the charity sector and organisations that operate for social and environmental purpose. Anyway, we wanted to provide them with some of these tools in the same way that the private sector are using, and kind of apply them to those problems and see what the outcomes are. It's grown quite a bit over the last 10 years. So initially we started working with local authorities and NHS trusts on things like service design consultancy and how you can develop your services better. And then they started asking us for digital services. Can you build us websites, CRMs, e-learning platforms? So now we've got quite a substantial digital program. Then they were like, oh, we've got marketing and comms challenges and we don't know how to do. So now we've got a large marketing and comms agency, creative. We've got a creative studio as well where we do lots of brand exercises. We've also got a research arm to our business where we do lots of market research consultancy with service users to try to understand different service models. And then on top of that as well, we operate a general consultancy service. So the breadth of work that we do these days is massive, and it can be how we describe how we work as an organisation is we're in the business of solving problems, and what a client will do is present us with the problems that they've got, and I will pull the relevant things out of my toolbox, marketing, comms, website, consultancy, to put the right things on the table to solve those particular issues. And that's what Brightsparks does. It's in the business of solving problems. It's not a marketing agency. It's not a digital agency. It's not we do all of those things and we do them really well. But fundamentally, we're in the business of solving social problems, and the harder, the better. Some of the things that gets me and my staff team are often a bit like, oh, why can't we just work on something that's like nice and easy and straightforward? But some of the things that's the juice for me is when there's a really difficult social challenge or issue that's out in the world and nobody's really got to grips with it, and it's been floundering for quite a long time. And there's so many of these, particularly in the public sector. So I'm really passionate about outcomes for young people in particular. And I think there's so much evidence that suggests if we get it right in childhood and we get it right throughout adolescent years, then we're going to be in a great position. Those people are going to be in a great position for the rest of their life. And one of the groups that we consistently over the last 30 years have got this wrong for is children that are in the care system. One of the things that we work on and substantially have developed a large portfolio of clients in is around supporting local authorities and charities and other independent organisations who are interested in working out how to encourage more people to come into fostering in particular, and the fostering of children. And I think it's had a really bad rep over the last 30 years. The public sector hasn't done a particularly great job at telling the story about how people can have a massive impact on people's lives. More importantly, what they failed to do is use really good systems, processes, campaigns, and kind of awareness raising activities to reach out to people who would be great foster carers but have never thought about it because they've got this particular picture in their mind. And a big bit of what we do at Brightsparks is working around behaviour change. So we look at this problem and we think, okay, how can we use some of the tools that I see Amazon using to follow people around on the internet to sell them hair straighteners and whatever else it needs to be? How can we use some of those tools to drip feed into people and help change behaviour around who these children are, their stories, and how they could make a difference in their lives, and then how we understand how they understand about not just the, I suppose, altruistic part of that, but also how it could be a really rewarding career for them as well, and how we position it as a job as well as something that's really great for them. So we completely redesigned the way in which local authorities think about recruiting foster carers, all the way from implementing top of the line digital systems, all the way from websites to CRMs to data tracking kind of systems, and really put a foundation in place where we can maximize the number of people that come through any given lead generation pathway. Then we've changed the way in which they think about marketing to those people and implemented a behavior change approach to it, where we are not just trying to appeal to people's hearts, but we're trying to appeal to their heads as well. And then on top of that, what we've tried to do is change the way in which social workers think about the journey for foster carers, because a lot of the time what they were doing is they were going, you need to know about all of the things that could go wrong, because it's quite a difficult job. It's not an easy job, it's quite a difficult job. But what they weren't doing is focusing on the difference they can make and how rewarding it can be and all that kind of stuff. So, and some of the sales around it as well. Often a local authority is one option for someone to foster. So we needed to implement kind of a customer engagement and a sales approach with them. So we worked with them on service design and training around all of that type of stuff, and develop this entire package, if you like, of how fostering for the public sector can work. And it's had substantial success. We've taken local authorities from recruiting one foster carer a year to 25, 30 foster carers a year. In the last 5 years, I think as an agency, the clients that we've worked with have recruited nearly 200 foster carers between them. That's a substantial amount of foster carers in terms of the national profile, which is a declining one. So that's one example of where we look at a structural problem and we go, how can we lever in these systems, processes, ways of working to improve it? There's a few more at the moment. Again, we're really passionate about the environment as well at Brightsparks, and we're currently involved in a massive project which is about trying to accelerate homeowners' adoption to solar and heat pumps and different household energy efficient measures. And again, there's quite an apathy around it, but York City Council in particular has got an ambition that York is net zero by 2030. If that's ever going to be realistic, more people have got to be adopting these measures really quickly. So that, again, this is a really big challenge that we like to get our teeth around and go, well, okay, what? So we started with some research in York. Okay, what are the structural barriers to people? What are people's perceptions around these things? How do they work? How does their mindset work with it? And trying to get under the bonnet of like what would be the things, the barriers that we need to knock down in order to kind of like have them adopt these things. And now again, we're into building out massive digital systems that take people on a lead generation journey, a huge marketing approach that's informed by, again, evidence-based behavioural science methodologies. We've been working with finance institutions in order to kind of develop practical finance solutions so that people can think about it in the same way as changing their energy tariff, and not, I've got to do this massive household project. Do you know what I mean? So it's about how people perceive these things. And then, again, just how we can develop a supply chain that works for these people in their everyday lives and these customers, instead of, being quite disparate and quite difficult to understand what they provide and how they provide it. So again, this is another big challenge, that we're putting those different services in place and building it up into about to launch it at the end of October. It's called Your Energy, and it's going to be a one-stop shop for people in York to find out how to retrofit their homes and get them really energy efficient and save money and be warm. So those are a couple of examples of how we work as an organisation. Again, we've been on a journey with this conversation over the last 10 years, and I think we understand meaningful business these days more on a spectrum. So we get approached by lots of clients these days, and we bid for lots of work as well with different clients. They're not always social purpose clients that approach us. So, for example, we had a big pharmaceutical company, a very, very large pharmaceutical company, approach us to do some work with them in the marketing, comms, digital and brand kind of arena. Now, that rang a load of alarm bells for me. Big pharma, not something that necessarily kind of resonates with social purpose. Do you know what I mean? But one of the things that they wanted to achieve was eliminating hepatitis C. Like, they wanted to dedicate huge amounts of money to eliminating hepatitis C in this country, and I can kind of get on board with that. Do you know what I mean? So this is an organisation that doesn't operate for social purpose at all. They are pharmaceutical giant where the profit margin is the bottom line. But they want to do something that has social purpose within it. So these are really difficult decisions for us to kind of work on. Do we do that type of thing knowing who the client is, but they want to achieve something? So that's one example of where we've got to be really careful. We didn't end up working on that project in the end. We made a decision not to. So there are decisions, I think, about who you're going to work with and how you're going to work with them. But also, further down the spectrum, there's this, on the face of things, might not look like there is any opportunity for social purpose here. This might be a product that doesn't, on the face of it, have any type of social purpose. But it's the way in which you look at solving that problem, and you look at providing that service, or you look at providing that product, where social purpose can be baked in. And it doesn't have to be huge things. Like, as an agency, as I said, we deliberately seek out these big social purpose issues. But equally so, it's not easy at all, actually. I was going to say it's easy to build social purpose, and it's not at all. But it's possible to build social purpose into everything you do. So you can look at your supply chain, for example. You can look at your product components and where they're coming from. You can look at who the people you choose to either commission and work with or employ. You can look at the places and spaces that you operate. You can look at what you do with your profit margin. You can look at, do you know what I mean? There are so many aspects where, on the face of it, you're not technically thinking about social purpose at all, or meaningful business, but social purpose can be baked into it. I think the other guiding principle that we always set out with in Brightsparks was that you can't help anybody or you can't do any social good if you are out of business inside 3 months. And I know so many people who have started social enterprises when actually what they wanted to do is do some good, right? And those people should go and work for or with a charity. Do you know what I mean? A lot of times they shouldn't even start their own charity. There's lots of charities out there. They should just go and work for a charity, a cause that they are passionate about, and do that type of thing. But I think we started with the philosophy that if we don't make a profit, we can't do any good, right? And people struggle, the social entrepreneurs that I've worked with really struggle with this philosophy of the balance, the weighing scales, if you like, between purpose and profit and that type of thing. And I'm clear on it, very clear. If we don't make a profit, I can't do good things. Do you know what I mean? I physically can't do them. So you have to run your business. Any meaningful business has to run the business with the due diligence that any other profit-making business would do so. And you've got to have the commercial systems, the commercial know-how. You've got to have the operational now. So you've got to know your markets. You've got to know sound business principles are the bedrock of meaningful business, right? It's the choices you make in those things that are the difference between meaningful business and not. Do you know what I mean? Who your supply chain is, who you're employing, what you're giving back, where you're working, who your customers are, all of those things. There are choices every day that you can make to either make your organization more green, or make your organization more inclusive, or make your organization give back to a particular community. So many opportunities all the way through it, and it can be done from the first week of starting a business. If you think about it, then it becomes part and parcel of who you are. And then you also get to sell on it. We sell a lot on our social value. You know what I mean? People come to work for us because they love the idea of working for an organization where there is purpose baked into what they do. Clients buy us because there's purpose baked into what we do. It's actually been a really effective selling tool for us as a business. And I think all of that stuff is what meaningful business means to me. As I said, selling our social value has been really powerful for us. And I think there's two things for me. There's what is the responsibility of business owners, or people starting businesses, or people getting into business? What is their responsibility here? And then there's what is the responsibility of for the environment and the infrastructure that they work within? And that very much is about government. It's about public sector. It's about a lot of it actually is about the structural nature of the finance sector as well. I remember early in my career walking into a bank and asking for a loan when we got a decent turnover, we'd got a good upward trajectory on contracts and that type of stuff. And I think I was asking for something like 30,000 to employ more staff. And they looked at the profile of the work that we did, and they were like, "We'll lend you 300 quid." So there's structural issues about how finance organisations think about social business, and they hear social enterprise and they think charity, they think small beer, they think, do you know what I mean, never going to get a return on profit on the investment, never going to high risk in terms of the loan, and that type of thing, and so there's changes that need to happen there, and there is some organisations that and particularly in the finance sector that are working in that space and trying to improve things, but it's far from ubiquitous and far from easy to access those structures. So I think if we go back to the two things, I think the first thing is, what is the responsibility of the people starting the businesses? And I think a lot comes down to what I was saying before about, you need to think about running your business really diligently and in a competitive manner, right? And in the way that nobody is going to give you this because you're trying to do nice things. And there's so many people who've had such great ideas about how to do good. They've gone out of business in the first 6 months. I started things. I think I'm on my 5th, 6th business now. And I started things earlier on in my career where they've gone out of business quickly because I haven't learned fast enough that you're in a competitive working world. Learn how to take business classes if you've never done it before. Or, in fact, my advice would be don't start a business unless you have some of the knowledge, skills, experience around commerciality, operations, finance, all that type of stuff. Just don't do it because it's hard enough as it is when you have got those skills. But you've got a responsibility to work out how to run your business really well, first of all, before you can do any good, right? So don't think people are going to give it to you, and don't think there's going to be loads of grants out there. I'll just get some grants and not. No, no. You're going to be out of business in 3 months. Set yourself up correctly. And then I think the second bit is, what can the public sector do? I think the public sector's got a much bigger responsibility in buying more of its services from organisations that align with their values, right? And I think public sector procurement is massively out of kilter with that these days. What's described as social value within public sector procurement is absolutely meaningless in the grand scheme of things. And actually, what we should be looking to do as the public sector should be having an open and honest dialogue with the types of organisations it wants to do business with, not from a operational service point of view, but from a values point of view. Who do we want to work with, and what shared values do we need to see between us? And I think that's a big bit of how social value should work. I think social value should be about a conscious decision to work with those organisations because they have the values and they have the social purpose baked into their model already, not forcing them to do it in the first place. And then you would find more organisations baking that in from day dot anyway. And then I think the other side of this as well is there's an opportunity, I think, for the private sector. Like, I've probably come off in this kind of podcast as being anti-big business and anti-private sector and anti-profit making. And I don't believe in that at all. I actually think there's lots of people and lots of organisations that operate in the private sector that want easy wins in terms of how to do social purpose better. Do you know what I mean? And easier. And I think mechanisms for joining up bigger private sector organisations with a supply chain that has social purpose baked in from day one is a massive opportunity there. Do you know what I mean? How can we create a supply chain with some of these smaller organisations that are delivering great stuff, that have got their commercial model sorted but operate for social good, are in effect subcontractors to larger organisations that want that profile? Do you know what I mean? They want to be doing more of that type of stuff, but find it difficult to mobilise that because they're just huge, big organisations. And I think that would be a much better way for private sector to go about meaningful business than the tokenary CSR programs that you see flying around from them. Where can we donate some money, or that type of thing. Actually, if you ploughed more of that money into supporting organisations that genuinely have that social purpose baked in, then it's a win-win. So I think those are some of the structural things that I think need to change. I think government's got a big role to play in terms of setting the scene for that as well and putting it on the agenda. I'm hopeful that as the Labour government moves forward, then some of those opportunities around joining up their really ambitious growth strategies for business and social purpose go hand in hand, and you would hope so with some of the, I suppose, more left-leaning policies that they have, but who knows. We're really ambitious, and we want to continue to grow our current portfolio of services, but we're looking for what the next big thing is. Do you know what I mean? We're looking for what the next structural challenge that we want to bite off is. We've got some ideas in this particular space as well. We're passionate about, some of that stuff I talked about in terms of joining big business up with social entrepreneurship. Been in that space quite a long time, and we want to do some work in that area. Again, I think we are looking at all avenues around what the public sector wants to achieve over the coming years, and some of the transformation that it needs to achieve to become more effective, more streamlined, more leaner, using better processes, all that kind of stuff. So we're in the market for that. But what we really want is to start a dialogue with central government departments about some of this, because what we often feel like is that we are trying to change things from the bottom upwards. Do you know what I mean? We're trying to put these things in at local authority level, at NHS trust level, and that type of thing. When actually some of these are structural issues that organisations are struggling with across the country. And actually we want to have that dialogue at a national level and go, look, these are the ways in which some of this could be tackled more structurally. Do you know what I mean? And that's really exciting for us, because it opens up opportunity to take some of our learning in the areas that we've done really well in and shown really good progress in, and apply them at a macro scale. And at that stage, I can sleep really well at night going, it's not hundreds of foster carers that I've got, it's thousands. Do you know what I mean? And it's not X number of people with solar panels on their roof. It's a national thing. Do you know what I mean? And that's where we're excited to move to. We want to move from being creating solutions at a small level, smallish level, and applying them at a macro level. And I'm sure you'll do it.
Thank you, Andy, for your fantastic insights and meaningful business. I wish you and Brightsparks the best of luck with all your future plans. Until the next time.